Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Imagine this. The person you love most in the world vanishes, dies even, and then they come back. But it's not really them. It's something else. Wearing their face, speaking their words, holding their memories. Is that a comfort or the ultimate nightmare? Today, we're diving deep into The Summer Hikaru Died by Mokumokuren, a manga that's absolutely taken the world by storm. This isn't your average ghost story, and it's definitely not a typical romance. It lives in that haunting, uncomfortable space right between the two, exploring grief, identity, and the terrifying twisted shape love can take after an unbearable loss. We're going to break down its themes, its unforgettable characters, and the incredible art that makes this a modern masterpiece of psychological storytelling. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for this one. So let's set the scene. Our story unfolds in a beautiful, quiet, rural Japanese village. Here, two inseparable childhood best friends, Yoshiki and Hikaru, share everything. They're practically brothers. But then, one summer, tragedy strikes. Hikaru goes into the mountains and dies. It's devastating, crushing. And just as Yoshiki is grappling with this unimaginable loss, Hikaru returns. He looks identical, sounds the same, even remembers everything. But Yoshiki, deep down, knows the chilling truth. The boy who walked back into his life is not his best friend. The entity that now inhabits Hikaru's body is something ancient, something nameless, an old presence from the mountains. It was drawn to the raw, intense sorrow of Yoshiki's grief, and it made a pact. It promised to preserve Hikaru's body, his memories, everything, in exchange for staying by Yoshiki's side forever. And that, right there, is the absolutely brilliant and terrifying heart of this story. There's no big mystery to solve, no monster to hunt down. The monster has already won. The horror isn't about defeating it. It's about having to learn how to live with it. Yoshiki got his deepest, most desperate wish, Hikaru back, but it's a poisoned chalice. He's now inextricably tethered to this beautiful, smiling ghost, a constant living reminder of everything he truly lost. It's chilling, isn't it? The true genius of this manga really shines in how profoundly it explores its core themes. Let's start with the anatomy of grief. For Yoshiki, grief isn't some temporary process he moves through. It's become a permanent state of being. He can then move on because the very object of his grief is standing right in front of him, looking back at him every single day. Each day is this agonizing cycle of being comforted by Hikaru's presence, only to be horrified by the unsettling truth of what it actually is. His grief has literally taken physical form, trapping him in that singular, tragic moment of loss. It's a perpetual purgatory. This leads us right into the second major theme, the corruption of identity. The story forces us to ask a really painful question. What truly makes a person who they are? Is it just their memories? Is it their physical body? Or is there some intangible soul, some unique essence? This entity has the first two down perfectly, but it's utterly missing that core essence. It tries its best to mimic Hikaru's personality, his affection, his deep love for Yoshiki, but its understanding is alien, possessive, and often deeply unsettling. We end up with this heartbreaking, almost grotesque love triangle. Yoshiki is undeniably still in love with the memory of the real Hikaru, while the entity develops its own warped, terrifying form of love for Yoshiki. It's possessive, it's primal, and it's deeply, deeply disturbing. And then there's the horror of the familiar. This manga understands that the most effective horror isn't always about grotesque monsters jumping out at you. It's about the subtle, creeping distortion of the everyday. The setting is this tranquil, sun-drenched village, a place that should feel safe. But the horror manifests in these small, quiet moments. A shadow stretching just a little too long, a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, a comment that feels just slightly off-key. The Entity is a master of this, using Hikaru's beloved face and voice to create an atmosphere of pervasive, intimate dread. It's far more frightening than any jump scare because it feels personal, inescapable. Now let's talk about the character dynamics, because the relationship between Yoshiki and the Entity is the absolute engine driving this entire story. It's this incredibly complex, twisted symbiosis, a mixture of dependency and outright fear. Yoshiki on some level depends on the Entity. It maintains the illusion, however fragile, that Hikaru is still there with him. And the Entity, in its own strange way, depends on Yoshiki for its very reason to exist. But this dependency is layered thick with fear, with resentment, and a lingering, almost unbearable love. Yoshiki's character is defined by this relentless internal conflict. He's constantly battling his desperate desire for the familiar warmth of Hikaru against his revulsion at the chilling truth. He's both a victim of this haunting and, in a really painful way, a willing participant in it. Because letting go, accepting Hikaru's death fully, is something his psyche simply can't handle. He's caught, trapped in a gilded cage of grief. The Entity, on the other hand, is a truly fascinating study. It's not purely evil in the traditional sense. It's an ancient, powerful being that in its own alien way is trying to learn how to connect and how to love. Its attempts are often horrifying, precisely because they are filtered through a completely non-human consciousness. Its jealousy, its fierce protectiveness, its strange expressions of affection, they're all slightly wrong, slightly off. This makes it a deeply ambiguous and compelling character. You fear it, absolutely, but the manga also subtly makes you understand its strange, lonely perspective. The story gets even more layered with the introduction of a female classmate who develops an interest in Yoshiki. She represents a potential path to normalcy, a chance for Yoshiki to perhaps break free from this suffocating, gilded cage of grief. But naturally, this is perceived as the ultimate threat by the Entity, triggering a primal, dangerous jealousy that truly highlights just how far from a normal life Yoshiki has actually strayed. It's a brilliant narrative device that really ratchets up the tension and the horror. And finally, we absolutely have to talk about the art of atmosphere in this manga. Any discussion of the summer Hikaru died would be incomplete without praising Mokumokuren's breathtaking artistic skill. The art style is incredibly detailed and realistic, with a stunning focus on texture. You can practically feel the grain of the wood, the density of the forest, the weave of fabric. This hyper-realism grounds the story so firmly that when the supernatural elements intrude, they feel all the more jarring, all the more wrong, all the more terrifying. The use of shadows and contrast is masterful. Characters are often half swallowed by darkness, visually representing their internal struggles and the oppressive nature of their situation. And the Entity's true form, when it's revealed in fleeting, fragmented moments, is a masterpiece of subtle body horror. It suggests twisted limbs and impossible angles without always showing them explicitly, allowing the reader's imagination to fill in those truly terrifying blanks. That's where the real fear comes from. The paneling is often tight and claustrophobic, perfectly mirroring Yoshiki's feeling of being trapped, which then makes the occasional wide shots of the mountainous landscape feel both beautiful and menacing at the same time. Every panel is a deliberate, artistic choice that deepens the story. So in conclusion, The Summer Hikaru Died is a truly unique and incredibly powerful work. It is definitely not a comfortable read. It will sit with you long after you've finished. But it is an incredibly rewarding one. It completely forgoes traditional horror tropes for a much deeper, more psychological terror that truly lingers. It's a story about how love can terrifyingly become a cage, how grief can become an ever-present haunting, and how the past can cling to us with the tenacious grip of a ghost that wears a familiar face. Ultimately, it is a tragic and beautiful exploration of that gut-wrenching question. If you could have your loved one back, at any cost would you? And what would you be willing to become or to live with to make that happen? It's a quiet, devastating, and utterly unforgettable masterpiece that I cannot recommend enough. If you've read The Summer Hikaru Died, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. What struck you the most? And if you haven't, are you planning to pick it up after this? Let me know. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives into amazing stories, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.